Hey, welcome back to the Big Book Deep Dive here on Progress and Perfection. You can find more information on our website. You can contact us. All the links for that will be in the description below. My name is Eamon. I'm joined by my good friend John. Here we go. Let's do step 11.
Let's do step 11. Let's do it. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day, i.e. the 10th step. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. Any thoughts?
Yeah, brief thoughts. This is some of the first stuff in the big book that I was actually assigned to read. Like I was reading 86 through 88. We're on page 86 right now. That was like assignment 1 for me. And I'll often do that for people that I work with too, because just getting these attitudes like literally ingrained in my mind. Here's what I do at night. It's 10th step, what we just talked about on the last episode. Right. Here's the proper attitude and posture waking up. It's not hitting the snooze button and dreading the day. It's, no, I'm going to think about the 24 hours. Like I'm going to use my brain, see what's up, what's ahead, ask God to direct my thinking, invite God in, keep me sober, all that stuff. Like these are, they're in step 11 because they're part of this continuing to seek his will for us. But they're so ingrained like in first step stuff for me also. And like the literal first steps of learning how to be sober minded. It does. These 3 pages especially just do a great job. Again, like what we talked about last time of instructing, how are we going to actually practically, like these are practical things, live one day at a time. Yeah. Sober.
Yeah. Yeah. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day that our next step is to be. That we begin whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. Okay, so
pray tell.
First of all, I think this is beautiful because there's lots of people out there in the world that don't live in the South that have never been exposed to religiosity or religious beliefs. they have no idea what prayer even is. And so I think the intention of sort of some pretty basic instruction of like what prayer is and how to go about doing it. Man, I just love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I love the idea that you had of like starting out at 86 and sort of creating that intentionality to pursue God's will each day, and sort of allowing that to set the premise for everything else that's to follow. So I think that's clever. I think that's a clever, good for your sponsor. I think that's pretty clever. So then there's this issue that it follows up in these next two paragraphs, or the paragraphs that we just read, which is a little bit more like, okay, asking God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. Okay, well, I think that's kind of interesting. And I'm thankful for the caveat that he makes on the next page that, you know, a lot of times that's not going to work.
Me up.
Yeah. A lot of times it's not going to work. It's basically what he's saying, which is kind of confusing and interesting.
Yeah.
Also. So I'm thankful that he throws that caveat in there, because it does, if you just leave that first part, it runs the risk of catastrophic failures.
Yeah.
And then blaming God for a lot of stuff.
Yep.
So I'm thankful for that, for the caveat there. What do you think about this idea in that next paragraph where he's basically saying, don't pray for yourself. Don't pray for your things. Don't pray for whatever your needs would be.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. Where do you land with that?
So the intention is wise, I think. And the reason that I say that
wisdom behind the intention. Okay, I'm listening.
But the reason I say that is because the whole crux of this disease, the whole crux of alcoholism, has been called out to be selfishness, self-centeredness, driven by 100 forms of self-pity, fear, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. All the junk.
Right.
It's all rooted in self.
Right.
And so when I got here and when I sobered up, I was still... I was not cured of that self. That's all that was left was the selfishness that needed and wanted, rather, an outlet. And so the posture that they're getting at is, I think, healthy.
Yes.
Is this a black and white all the time guideline? No, I don't think so. But the posture is stop worrying about your damn self.
Right.
Stop praying that you'd get the job, you'd get the girl, you'd get the house, you'd get the bills taken.
Right.
Stop praying for stuff so that you can, once again, just fill the spiritual void that you now have because you don't have alcohol. So that's where this is good and true and right, and I think very wise.
Yeah.
Because what I just described is my own mentality. It was when I immediately turned all of my thought life and attention to, okay, I feel like crap again. What's going to make me feel better? Well, God, would please give me X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Because I still think, and this follows me to today, I still think I know what's best for me. Like I know I don't, but I still think that if I just got a little further than I am, if I just made a little more than I do, if things were just a little bit better than they are, then whatever unease and whatever level of it that I feel would be less, because I'm still looking for a physical, a material, an emotional solution to, gosh dang it, a spiritual problem. And it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's square peg, round hole.
Right.
So I think the biggest piece would be, yeah, I do agree with the intent here. And I think it's the wise intent. Yeah. Do I think we should never pray for ourselves? Well, no, I don't believe that either. So it's a both and, not either or for me today. Because I do think that we're able to, and we're called to pray for ourselves. It, it even says in the scripture, like he'll intercede for us on our behalf. And when we can't pray even for ourselves, that Christ is praying for us. And so I believe those things to be good and true and right. But I have to get way away from that deep-seated selfishness before I can kind of start into the intermediate level, so to speak. I mean, to really dumb it down and to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally understand that idea, because you're right. Like, the idea isn't like, okay, I'm sober now. God, please give me a freaking Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Please, God, let me hook up with that hot chick. Please, God.
Yep.
Let me, whatever it may be,
Whatever
right?
it is.
The material thing that's continuing to seek to fill the God-shaped hole, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I totally see that, and it's I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. I mean, that's not the gospel that most of us adhere to. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there's definitely a place to be able to pray for yourself in situations. How do you differentiate that situation? I think, like, it goes back to what we just read in step 10. Like, as you are spirit filled, the conviction to pray, what would you say, in right standing, and the ability to pray in right standing just becomes intrinsic and almost becomes natural. Yeah, because I don't pray for myself to make more money or get another job. I'll pray for God's provision, and I'll thank Him for providing. I'll pray for my health, and thank Him for allowing me to be healthy. If I've got, whatever it may be, some type of anxiety or fear that's going on in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be glad to pray for that for me.
Yeah.
to help overcome that fear or anxiety or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I think, like, I guess the hope would be that as you walk through the steps, you would be with a godly enough person once you get to that place to be able to help you decipher sort of the meaning behind those statements. That, yeah, the idea isn't to continue to pray selfishly, but that it is okay to pray for yourself.
2 brief more points to that end. It does qualify it in the 12 and 12, I think, where it says if and when we do pray for ourselves, we make sure to qualify it with "Thy will be done." And so, and it said that phrase here somewhere too, like just making sure that we don't attach expectation to any of our prayers of, well, God, you didn't answer that. Well, actually, He did, and the answer was no.
Right.
And so having that, self-awareness enough to know that God is still God, and I can pray into this and pray for this, you, me, whoever. But at the end of the day, I also have to accept His will.
Right.
And then the second thing escapes me. There was another point.
Yes, you're getting old. Love it.
It happened.
Brain fart.
It happened.
If it comes back, let me know.
It'll come back.
I'm going to continue reading.
Go for it.
If circumstances warrant, maybe we should pray. Maybe you should pray for your memory.
Pray for
I don't know. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. As we go through the day, we pause, when agitated or doubtful, and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, there's what you were saying,
Bingo.
Thy will be done.
Mm-hmm.
We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. Yeah, there's the caveat that you laid out there, that thy will be done. But I also want to make a point here. Like, I don't think what he's implying, just, for any naysayers out there, he's not implying live life as a fuddy-dud. Okay, so when he says we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions, we become much more efficient. It doesn't mean that you turn into a fuddy-dud that's incapable of experiencing fright or being excited or like making foolish fun out of activities. I don't know, just sort of a clarifying statement there. And it's not this idea of like we become these sort of robotic modalities of efficiency suddenly in everything that we do. We're still very unique people. And I think there's got to be this balancing there of appreciation in allowing ourselves the freedom to feel things that are exciting, to engage in activities that create fear, i.e., running the Berkeley Fall Classic, things like that. But I think, like, obviously the idea here is that with a God consciousness with sober-mindedness, it becomes new, and it becomes like something that was not used as it was, to his point. Like, it wasn't like burning up energy foolishly. It becomes this new ability to experience these feelings and emotions. So maybe that's the therapist in me.
Well, no, it's great. And I totally agree with it, because I tied those last little bits together and just this attitude of, well, he's not guarding against emotion here.
Right.
He's not guarding against the joy and the tragedies and the excitement and the fear and like the richness of life and all the good and all the bad.
Right.
We now get to experience that in a full way, in a sober way. Right. In much more depth and color than we could before. But this part about the burning up energy foolishly, I just tie that I just read that as, we're guarding against all the selfish manifestations of that. Right. How can I do exciting stuff and me, and me, and I. Like that's what all that's tied up. Again, I kind of always point back to the selfish part of the root of all this when it starts getting into this stuff.
Yeah.
But the fullness of life, that's what we're after.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember what I was going to say earlier too.
Oh, please.
So with regards to praying for ourselves, like a good litmus test, like if all I'm doing is praying for myself, something's probably out.
That's probably true.
Something's probably off there.
That's probably true. That's again. Yeah.
But just a small nugget there.
Action and more action.
Always.
Faith without works is dead.
I've heard that somewhere before.
It's in quotations.
Sure is.
Is that James?
Sure is.
From the book of James?
Feels like a Jamesism.
Feels like that would be in the book of James.
James one-liner. Yep.
I think my second sponsor? His name was James. Shout out to James.
Nice. What's up, James?
Out there in New Mexico. Killing it.
Nice.
20 plus years sober.
Nice.
Not to break your anonymity, but, whatever.
Boom.
You're a good guy. Love you.
Action, more action.
All right. So I guess next time we'll speak about
Step 12 coming up next. That's the action. That's the more action.
Always a pleasure.
Indeed, sir.
Go run some.
No more concussions. Hey, thanks for listening. You can find more info at progressandperfection.com, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.